Hi, and welcome to my Tidbits. Today I had a home inspection, and if you haven't purchased a property in a long time, what does that mean for your purchase? When you make an offer, you have a time frame to get a home inspection, and believe it or not, it was extremely busy the past couple of weeks with buyers and sellers, and there's been a lot of properties that have gone under contract, and so it was really hard for my buyers to find a home inspector. I have a list that I use, and I actually had to call a friend and ask, did she have any more recommendations, because they were all booked, all 8 of them. So we found this other one. He did a fabulous job today. I'm going to be using him again in the future. He did a great job, Jay. But what does a home inspection mean? So what they do is they go through the whole property and they focus on things like all the utilities, the electrical, the plumbing. They open all the doors. They test all the appliances. They look at all the trim on the inside, the outside. They just check everything that's going on in the house and note any issues that they find. So one thing to keep in mind when you're buying a house is it's not a brand new house. It's in most cases 20, 30, 50 years old. It's not going to be perfect. There are some owners that are super fastidious about upkeep and maintenance on their home. They still have things that come up in a home inspection. So it doesn't mean that they're not being cared for, the home. Generally what will happen is that there are maintenance issues, and that's what we had today, with the exception of a couple of little things, which I'll talk about at the end. But the maintenance issues, the home inspector walked around and he said, oh, your bulkhead paint is peeling. Well, do we need to take money off for that? No. Anything that you saw when you looked at that property the first or second time before you made an offer are things that you saw, and you made your offer according to what you saw. So you saw the little pieces of rotting wood trim, you saw the bulkhead peeling paint, maybe the agent told you that the fireplace isn't usable, things like that you can't then go back and ask for money off of your offer because of. So that's something to keep in mind when you're making an offer. It really is dependent on things that the home inspector is finding that you didn't know about before. So like a hot water tank, for example, has a code on it, and the code will give you the letter that tells you how old the tank is. So they may say, well, we had our tank, I don't know how old it is, it was with the house when I bought it. The average lifespan of a hot water tank is 10 years. So if it was older than 10 years, that is something that we could try to negotiate with the sellers on. So that's one item. There was something in the electrical panel that gave a little concern to the home inspector. So that's something that, we don't have the report yet. So we're going to wait and see what the report says and then kind of get a bigger picture. But little things like that as a layman, you may not recognize immediately that this could be an issue or that this should be corrected. It could be a fire hazard. That's something you want to take care of right away. Or plumbing, if there's an active leak, things that you can deal with right away that are important to do. That's the kind of thing that you want to address if you're going to negotiate the price on a home. So that's kind of what we did today. We had a nice, this is a ranch with a finished basement, and we were there for 2.5 hours. That's average. A larger home could be up to 4 hours. Generally, the owner isn't there, and the owner's agent isn't there. When you do a home inspection, the buyer is paying for that home inspection. It's their property. I have to ask permission to get a copy of it from the inspector while the buyer is standing there to authorize it. But that belongs to the buyer only. They've paid for it, and it's their document to do with as they wish. So my buyer gave me permission today to get a copy of it, and we'll look it over together. So 2.5 hours. Afterwards, we went outside. We talked with the inspector, and then the buyer and I talked a little bit about what we felt was the most critical item or items. Just testing for radon. Do you do it or not? I always recommend that you do a radon test, and the inspector's looking for mice droppings and termite infestation, things like that. So those are the things that are critical that as a layperson you may not be able to spot immediately. Obviously having a radon test is important. It's not as common on the Cape as it may be off Cape, but it is starting to pop up on occasion. So I always recommend that you do that. Better safe than sorry. It's an inexpensive test to do and you get your answers right away. If there is radon, that's also a negotiation with the sellers that you can request a mitigation system be installed prior to closing. And with that, or maybe, have it done as part of your negotiating items. Easy enough to do. It's not super expensive, but it is something that would come up in an inspection that you wouldn't be able to see up front. So those are just some things to think about when you're buying a house. Have a great week, everybody.